In the first month after returning to the Chung family from the acrobatic troupe, I regarded obedience as the key to survival. My adopted sister made a joke, and I rubbed myself with a steel ball until I bled. My brother made an angry comment, and I rolled down the spiral staircase. Everyone said I was crazy and that I could act. Until that dinner party, I sank into the pool in my dress. My lungs were about to explode, and there was only one sentence in my mind. My brother said, "If you can't fish it out, don't come out." 1. On the 7th day after returning to the Chung family, I learned one thing. In this family, if anyone asks, I will do it. The faster I do it, the more peaceful I will feel. When I was brought back when I was 18, the Chung family held a small family dinner for me. It is said to be small, but actually a lot of people came. His father's partner, his mother's card buddies, his brother's friends, and a few wives who always hang around Chung Yutong. Chung Yutong was wearing a white skirt, standing next to me, smiling sweetly. "Sister, don't be nervous." While she was arranging my hair, she leaned close to my ear and spoke very softly. "The smell of rust on you is so strong. There's steel wool and disinfectant in the bathroom. Go and give it a good scrubbing before you come out. There are many guests, so don't inflame them." After she finished speaking, she winked at me. I nodded. Good. She probably just wanted to embarrass me. But what I heard were orders. At the Gorgeous Circus, the dressing room floor always smells like rust. Someone broke a leg. Someone vomited blood. After we finished the performance, we had to kneel on the ground and use steel wool to scrub the floor. Whoever brushes slowly will lose his dinner. Anyone who dares to cry will have the electric batons dropped. I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the disinfectant. The taste is very strong. I lowered my head and smelled it, and I thought it was very similar to the potion used when washing cage trucks over there. Very reassuring. I dampened the steel wool and started brushing for my arms. The first time I went in, my skin turned red. The second blow was painful. On the third stroke, tiny blood droplets emerged and mixed with the foam, turning into a light pink color. I brushed very seriously. Arms, neck, shoulders, collarbone. When the brush reached my back, I couldn't reach it, so I rubbed it against the wall. The tiles were so cold that the wound stuck to them, making me clench my teeth in pain. But I didn't stop. I'm afraid I haven't cleaned it properly. Afraid of people outside smelling it. Afraid of their frowning. Afraid that Chung Yutong would be unhappy. I was squatting by the bathtub brushing my calves when the door was smashed open. Mother Gulan screamed. "Z." She rushed over and grabbed the steel wire ball in my hand, and I subconsciously shrank my hand. "Don't grab tools. If you steal something and the work is not finished, you'll be punished." I hugged my knees and looked up and saw my father's face was livid, and several servants were standing at the door, all stunned. Brother Chung Jingyan came in last. He glanced at me, the disgust on his face not hidden. "Who are you performing for?" I was stunned. I don't know what acting means. The mother's voice trembled with anxiety. "Call the doctor quickly. Hurry." Chung Jingyan frowned and looked coldly at the red marks and bloodshot eyes on my body. We made trouble for a few days after I came back. I felt really embarrassed, so I went to kneel in the cold storage of the wine cellar to sober up. When I heard this, I felt relieved. It turns out it's not over yet. I have something to do. As long as there is clarity, I know how to live. I stood up holding on to the edge of the bathtub and walked out barefoot. My mother grabbed me and said, "Z, where are you going?" I answered honestly. Brother asked me to kneel in the cold storage. Before she could react, I had already pried her hand away. The wine cellar is underground. The cold storage door was very heavy, and white mist hit my face when I pushed it open. I went in, closed the door behind my back, and knelt in the middle of the rows of wine cabinets. The floor was as cold as ice. The moment my knees touched me, I shivered. I straightened my back and put my hands on my legs. I am familiar with this posture. When the regiment was punished by kneeling, you would be whipped if you bent your back, and you would be given extra time if you moved your hands erratically. Your forehead should not be lowered, and your mouth should not make any sound. Ik net voor alom team. It's been so long that my toes are numb. It took so long that I couldn't tell whether this was the Chung family's wine cellar or the freezer with props in the backstage of the Jin K troupe. I heard my teeth chattering. My heart is getting quieter and quieter. It doesn't matter if it's cold. The cold is better than the electric baton. 2. The next morning, I was carried out by servants. She found that the cold storage door was not locked tightly and there was white mist coming out. I'm still kneeling. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. My mother kept crying while the family doctor took my temperature. My father stood nearby, walking back and forth, his slippers making a sound on the floor. Chung Yutong sat in the corner of the sofa with red eyes. "It's all my fault," she said softly. I was just joking. I didn't expect my sister to take it seriously. Chung Jingyan scratched his hair irritably. She hasn't been normal since she came back. Who knows what she wants to do? When I opened my eyes, I met his gaze. He paused and his tone became harder. "Get up when you wake up. Don't play dead." I immediately sat up on the bed. When you have a fever, your bones feel sore, especially your knees, as if they had been hit by a hammer. I still sit fast. If I move too slowly, I will feel uneasy. Chung Jingyan pointed upstairs. "Go and apologize to Yutong. She was so scared by you last night that she couldn't sleep all night. I nodded. Good. Chung Yutong seemed to be frightened and shrank behind his mother. Brother, forget it, I'm fine. Chung Jingyan's face became darker. Let her go. I walked upstairs holding onto the wall. My knees were shaking and my feet were a little wobbly on the wooden floor. When I opened the door to Chung Yutong's room, she was sitting on the bed with a doll in her arms. When she saw me, her eyes flashed. Sister, what are you doing here? I walked over to her bed and knelt down. This action is so familiar that it almost requires no thought. She said, and stepped back. I raised my hand, aimed it in my left cheek, and slapped it down. The room fell silent for a moment. I slapped him a second time. The third time. The fourth time. In the Golden Bird group, you have to hit yourself when you apologize. The foreman stood in front and counted. If you hit me lightly, you have to start over. The matter is not over until the other party is satisfied. While I was beating, I said in a hoarse voice, Sorry, I shouldn't have scared you. Not next time. His face soon became swollen and the corners of his mouth were broken. I tasted blood. My palms were numb and my ears were ringing. I didn't stop. When the count reached 21, the door was pushed open violently. Chung Jingyan rushed in and grabbed my wrist. Are you sick? He was so strong that my wrist turned red immediately. I looked up at him. It's not over yet. He froze. What? I said, honestly, I used to have to give 50 strokes. Anything less does not count as an admission of fault. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. His face was ugly, but his voice became louder. Who asked you to apologize like this? I thought about it. This question is difficult to answer. There are so many people who taught me this. The class manager, the foreperson, the makeup artist, and the woman who always hit my calves with a bamboo stick. I can't tell. I could only whisper. It's always been like this. No one spoke. Finally, my mother rushed in and pulled me up from the ground. When she touched my swollen face, her hands were shaking. Z, no need, no need. I stood there and didn't move. I shouldn't have stopped until someone told me to stop. But the mother cried. I don't want her to cry. At dinner in the evening, I was arranged at the end of the long table. There are many dishes on the table. Crab meat tofu, garlic shrimp, steamed sea bass, and a plate of mango millefeuille. My mother said that I loved sweet food the most when I was a child, so she specially asked the kitchen to make it. I looked down at the chopsticks, not knowing how to do it. In the acrobatic troupe, we use aluminum rice bowls. When winter vegetables are poured in, the edges turn white with coldness. Whoever eats slowly will have his bowl kicked away. There are no chopsticks, so I often just grab it with my hands. Chung Yutong cut the steak slowly and suddenly smiled. Sister, the way you hold the knife and fork looks like you are throwing knives. Several people stopped to look at me. My fingers froze. She added, Lucky knows how to eat better than you. Why don't you go to the yard and learn from him? I looked up and saw the smile in her eyes. I know she was laughing at me, but I still stood up. I picked up my bowl of rice and walked out of the restaurant. There is a golden retriever in the yard named Lucky. It was lying on the edge of the nest wagging its tail. When it saw me coming, it tilted its head. I squatted down next to it, put the bowl on the ground, imitated its bowing posture, and put the rice into my mouth one bite at a time. The rice fell to the ground, so I picked it up and ate it. This is faster. This is more presentable. Suddenly, there was the sound of something breaking behind him. The father roared, Chung, Zi. I turned my head. Everyone stood at the door of the restaurant and looked at me like a monster. Chung Jingyan strode over and pulled me up. Who are you deliberately disgusting? I dropped the bowl in my hand, fell to the grass, and rolled twice. I looked at him and explained carefully. I'm studying. If I learn, I won't embarrass you. Chung Jingyan's expression froze. The next second, he almost gritted his teeth and said, Go to the storage room. Don't come out without me. I nodded. Good. The storage room was small and filled with old picture frames and suitcases. After the door was closed, it was dark inside. I stood close to the door panel all night, because no one said I could sit. 3. I had a high fever in the storage room. At noon the next day, when the servant went in to deliver the meal, he found me still standing. My forehead was hot and my lips were dry. I kept my eyes open while the doctor gave me the injection. The needle pierced the blood vessel, the cold liquid was pushed in, and the back of the hand swelled a little. I'm not afraid of this. What I'm afraid of is that no one can tell me what to do next. Chung Jingyan stood by the bed and looked at me for a long time. There was a circle of green under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept all night. The smell of cigarette smoke was very strong, wafting from the cuffs of my shirt to the tip of my nose. You were there before, he paused, as if he didn't want to mention those 2 words. Have you always been like this? I don't know what he was asking about. I didn't say anything. He pulled off his collar irritably, turned to the servant, and spoke. Throw away all her old clothes. They are so dirty, and I don't know how many bacteria they brought back. When I came back, I only brought a very worn canvas bag. Inside were 2 pieces of washed white clothes, a pair of unglued shoes, and a kettle with a broken strap. That's all I have. When I heard the word throw away, I couldn't bear to part with it. The acrobatic troupe taught me that things can't be kept, so people must obey first. I lifted the quilt and got out of bed and started to unbutton the hospital gown. Chung Jingyan was stunned. What are you doing? I looked up at him. Take it off and throw it away. His brows tightened. You're taking it off right here? I kept moving. The hospital gown was very loose, and when the second button was unbuttoned, the collar slid down a lot. The scars on my body were exposed. There were old burns on the shoulders, dark marks on the arms from the ropes, and a long scar on the side of the waist, as if it had been pulled apart by some sharp weapon. The air suddenly became quiet. Chung Jingyan stared at the injuries, and his expression changed several times. He suddenly sprinted over, pulled up the thin blanket on the bed, and covered me with his hood. Put it on. I clutched the blanket, a little dazed. The previous sentence means take it off. This sentence is put on. I don't know which one to listen to first. I stood still, but he became even more angry. Chengzi, are you shameless? I didn't answer. What a face is. I couldn't think about it at that time. I just did the math quickly in my head. The order changed. Change the action. Be quick. I was about to wrap the blanket tightly when Chung Jingyan turned his back and his voice became hoarse. Get back under the covers. I did. He stood by the window, his back straight. After a few seconds, he turned around as if he couldn't bear it anymore. You are so obedient. Why don't you just roll down the stairs? As soon as I said these words, my chest suddenly felt lighter. There are clear words again. I got off the bed and walked out barefoot. Chung Jingyan was stunned for a moment, then shouted, Where are you going? I didn't look back. The stairs are at the end of the corridor. The staircase in the Chung family is very beautiful, curved, white marble, spiraling all the way down, with pale gold tassels hanging on the handrails. The servants polished it until it shined brightly every day, and there was no dust at all when stepped on. I stood at the top and glanced down. A bit high, but this is much lower than the error ring. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. The world turned upside down, hitting the step 4 head first. Then come the shoulders, back, elbows, and knees. The bones seemed to have been torn apart again, and I heard the muffled sound in my body hitting the steps, one time, and another time. When I rolled to the last level, I bumped into the entrance cabinet and stopped. His mouth was filled with the taste of blood. I lay on the ground, my vision trembling. Someone screamed in my ears. My mother's voice broke when she called my name. My father's footsteps were chaotic. The servants rushed over, with the sound of slippers, cries, and the sound of glass crashing. Chung Jingyan was the last one to rush down. His face was as white as paper, and he threw himself next to me. His hand was trembling as he stretched it out, and he didn't dare to touch it. ZZ. This is the first time since I came back that he has called me by my first name. I wanted to laugh, but when I opened my mouth, blood flowed from the corners of my lips. I looked at him and said softly, Brother, I'm leaving. Don't be angry. The next second I fainted. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. He suffered a dislocated shoulder, 6 stitches on his forehead, and a fractured bone in his left calf. The doctor said I was lucky and there was no problem with my brain. Chung Jingyan sat beside the hospital bed, as if his soul had been drained. He lowered his head, held his forehead with his hands, and did not move for a long time. I called him, Elder brother. He looked up suddenly, his eyes red. Are you in pain? I thought about it and shook my head. This is not a lie. I don't care about the pain when I roll. There is only one thought in my mind. My movements must be standard, and I cannot be lazy. I said, you can only tell the pain after rolling. If you call stop midway, you'll be fined double. Chung Jingyan felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. 4. After I was discharged from the hospital, I was arranged to recuperate in the guest room at the end of the 2nd floor. There was someone watching outside the door, and the window was only open a crack. I know they're afraid that something will happen to me again. But I didn't feel wronged. Someone is watching, which means I don't have to guess what to do for the time being. That afternoon, Chung Yutong came in with a bowl of snow pear soup. She was wearing a cream white home dress, her hair was disheveled, and she had a sweet smile. Sister, I made the stew for you. Isn't your throat broken? Drink some to moisten it. I glanced at the bowl of soup. The heat was very strong and small bubbles were forming around the edges. I've had drinks at temperatures like this before. When the foreman brings the medicinal soup over, he always says, while it's hot, whoever dares to cool off will have the spoon knocked on his mouth. I stretched out my hand to take it, raised my head, and drank. After taking the first bite, it felt like a layer of skin had been burned off my tongue. The second bite hurt even more. The hot soup rolled down my throat, as if someone had pulled a red-hot thread through it. My vision went dark, but my hand was still steady. I can't throw up. Vomiting is tantamount to resistance. When I put the empty bowl down, my mouth was filled with the smell of blood, and my throat hurt as if it was clogged with charcoal. Chung Yutong looked at me, and his smile froze. Sister, you are so awesome. She took the bowl, and her eyes fell on the small ornaments on my bedside. That was what my mother had just put in, a crystal music box. There is a carousel inside, and when you press the bass, soft piano music will play. My mother said I liked this the most when I was a child. Chung Yutong reached out and picked it up. Mom is really partial. I wouldn't let you touch this before, but now I'm giving it to you. I looked at the music box in her hand and said nothing. She suddenly said, yeah. The hand loosened. The crystal music box fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Almost at the same second, the door opened. Chung Jing'an walked in. Chung Yutong stepped back, as if he was frightened. His fingertip was scratched by the edge, and a small drop of blood came out. Her eyes immediately turned red. Brother, I didn't mean it. Chung Jing'an looked at her hands first, then at the debris on the floor, and finally at me. His jaw was tense, and his expression was frighteningly serious. Can't you just calm down for a while? I saw his face and knew it was my turn to clean up the mess. In the regiment, breaking mirrors and light bulbs is a big deal. You have to kneel down and pick them up piece by piece, leaving no footprints on the pieces and no blood on the ground. Anyone who cannot pick it up will sleep with broken glass at night. I lifted the quilt and got out of bed. The injury on his leg had not healed yet, and he felt a sharp pain when he stepped on the ground. I quickly squatted down. The first piece, the second piece, the third piece. The edge of the crystal is very sharp, and when it is cut open in the palm of the hand, there is a crisp pain like paper being torn apart. Blood flowed out quickly and dripped down between the fingers. I held the shard a little tighter. This seems serious. This way they will know that I am making amends. Chung Jing'an was stunned. What are you doing? I looked up at him. I'll clean it up. I will pay for it. He seemed to be choked by these words, rushed over in a few steps, and forcibly broke my fingers. I don't really want to loosen up. It's wrong to let go before you finish picking it up. He was stronger than me, so he still broke my hand open. The palm was scratched to a bloody pulp, and the deepest cut was almost open. Chung Jing'an stared at that hand, and his breathing became erratic. Cheng Zi, are you crazy? I looked at him and asked seriously, isn't this enough? Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. Mother and father also rushed over. When my mother saw my hand, her legs softened, and she held on to the door frame to stand firm. My father called for a taxi with a sullen face. His voice was hoarse. I was taken to the hospital and restitched. When the doctor was cleaning the wound, when the forceps touched the flesh, my hand would instinctively shrink, but I didn't make a sound. The nurse looked at me several times and finally couldn't help but speak. If it hurts, just say it. Don't hold it in. I looked at her and after a while asked softly, I told you, would you be gentler? The nurse was stunned. She didn't answer. Because she knows no. Chung Jing'an stood outside the door, looking at me through the glass. I could feel his eyes on my hands. That night a female doctor walked into the ward. He is in his 30s, has short hair, and is very gentle. She didn't look at my injuries first like others. She looked at my eyes first. My surname is he, a psychiatrist. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Cheng Zi, would you like to say a few words to me? I looked at her without nodding or shaking my head. I'm not very good at answering, will you? This question has never been asked to me in the past 6 years. 5. The first time doctor he spoke to me, he didn't ask me why I hurt myself. She asked me, when you hear someone speaking to you in a commanding tone, does your body move first? I looked at her for a long time and nodded lightly. She asked again, do you have time to think about it? I shook my head. Too late. Most of the time, the body is faster than the brain. Kneel down, stand up, laugh, turn over, jump, and get into the water. As soon as these words come down, I will move. If you move too slowly, it will hurt. Doctor, he did not ask any further questions. But before the diagnosis was made, something happened to the Chung family first. My father happened to have a very important charity dinner at that time. The news of my return is spread, and everything is said. Some people said that the Chung family had found their biological daughter. Some said that I'd lost my mind by staying outside, and some used secretly filmed videos to discuss me eating with the dog in the yard. My father wanted me to show up. He probably thinks that as long as I behave and be quiet, those rumors will stop. He spoke softly as he brought the gown to my room. Z, just for a moment, go down with Dad and stand for a while, okay? I nodded. Okay. The dress is light blue and has a row of fine buttons on the back. When the maid was changing my clothes, her fingers accidentally touched the old scar on my back, and she paused, obviously. I know she saw it. It looks like it has been strangled by a rope, like it has been burned by fire, or like it has been rubbed out after falling from a high place. Those traces are connected together and are ugly. When I went downstairs in my dress, there were already many people in the hall. The light is very bright. It was so bright that my eyes turned white. The champagne tower, the long table, the crystal lamp, the band, and the eyes that fell on me. It feels a lot like being on stage. In the Golden Birds, it was the same before the game started. There was a lot of noise backstage, and the lights in front were blinding. The class leader would pinch our chins, make us laugh, and then push us one by one to the stage. I stood next to my father, with cold sweat all over my back. My mother was very nervous and kept holding her handbag. Chung Jing'an stood not far away, his eyes never leaving me. Chung Yutong, as usual, was the center of the audience. She can play the piano, toast, and say nice words. Everyone praised her for being sensible and said she was like a little son. She held her mother's hand as if nothing had happened. After drinking for a while, she suddenly walked up to me and touched the ring on her hand. It was an emerald, an adult gift given to her by her mother not long ago. She lowered her voice and said with a smile, "Sister, aren't you good at holding your breath? Fetch the ring back for me, okay?" I was startled. Following her line of sight, I saw a little green light shining in the koi pond outside the hall. I don't know when the ring fell in. All I know is that the word "go into the water" made my back feel cold. The Golden Bird Troop has a water tank program. Those who fail will be pushed into the water and practice again. The class leader pressed the back of the person's head and cursed while counting the seconds. When I hold it in until I'm about to explode, my ears will be filled with the sound of my own heartbeat. The water will be choked from the nose, and the lungs will feel like being cut with a knife. I stood still. The smile on Chung Yutang's face faded a little. Just when she was about to say something else, Chung Jingyan walked over. "What's wrong?" Chung Yutang's eyes immediately turned red. My ring fell into the pool. She glanced at me and whispered, "Sister may not want to help me." Chung Jingyan followed her line of sight and saw the green spot in the pool. He must have been drunk, and there was uncontrollable anger in his brows. "Just ask someone to fish it out. Why are you crying?" Chung Yutang sniffed, but that was given to me by my mother. Someone was already looking over. Chung Jingyan's face turned even darker, and he turned to me and lowered his voice. "Do you hear me? Go get the ring. If you can't get it, don't come out to see anyone tonight." He spoke quickly and in a strong tone. There was a boom in my head. Enough. The order is clear enough. I walked towards a koi pond, took off my high heels, lifted up my skirt, and stepped in. At first it was just a cold ankle. Then the calves, knees, waist, and chest. The water is getting deeper and deeper, and the coolness has not come over at all. There were exclamations all around. Some called my name, some said to pull her back quickly. But I dare not stop. Haven't caught it yet. It can't come out yet. There are many stones and moss on the bottom of the pool, which is very slippery. I bent down and reached out to touch in the muddy water. The ring was so small that I couldn't see anything clearly, so I could only poke into the mud over and over again. Breathing was messed up. The lights flickered on the water, blinding me. I gritted my teeth and sank. The water pressed over my ears, and the world suddenly became quiet. So quiet that only my own heartbeat was left. I closed my eyes and groped at the bottom of the pool. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. My lungs started to hurt. When the pain was severe, I remembered what the class leader said when he stepped on my back. "You didn't hear the command above, who allowed you to take the lead?" So I was even more afraid to go out. I touched a handful of mud, water plants, cracks in the rocks, and finally a round thing. I thought that might be the ring. But the next second, someone grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the water. The air rushed in, choking my throat as if it was split. I coughed desperately until my eyes turned black, but I still held my hands tightly. Chung Jingyan hugged me, and his whole body was shaking. "Z, let go. Let go." I was soaked and shivering with cold, but I instinctively clenched my fists. "I haven't found it yet," I gasped and said intermittently, "I can't come out." The color on Chung Jingyan's face faded away bit by bit. He lowered his head and opened my fingers, and there was a black pebble in his palm. Not a ring. He looked at the stone, and his eyes turned red. "Ambulance," he almost yelled. "Hurry up." When I was put on the stretcher, my vision was blurred. At the last glance, I saw Chung Yutang standing outside the crowd, his face frighteningly pale. Her hands were trembling. 6. When I woke up in the hospital, the smell of disinfectant mixed with pool water was still in my nose. Chung Jingyan was sitting next to my bed. His hair was messy and his suit jacket was still half wet. When I opened my eyes, he seemed to finally dare to breathe. "Woke up?" I nodded. He opened his mouth and managed to squeeze out only one sentence for a long time. "Don't listen to anything I say from now on." I looked at him quietly. "This sentence is too difficult for me." He probably understood. He raised his hands to cover his face. The veins on the back of his hands were very tight. That afternoon, he called everyone in the Chung family into the consultation room. I'm here too. I was sitting in a wheelchair with an injection on the back of my hand and a thin blanket draped over my shoulders. Chung Jingyan stood behind me, holding the handle of the wheelchair tightly with one hand. My mother's eyes were severely swollen, and my father looked much older overnight. "Doctor," he put the case on the table. His voice was not fast but steady. "Ms. Chung suffered severe complex trauma. Her most obvious performance now is command obedience. If there is a commanding tone, she will instinctively execute it. Many times, the body will move first, and the brain has no time to judge." Father frowned, as if he was still trying to find some other explanation. "Is she mentally ill?" "Doctor," he glanced at him. "She's sober. She knows the pain, knows the fear, and knows what she's doing. But she is even more afraid of disobedience. The price of disobedience has been too high for her in the past few years." Chung Jingyan's hand tightened suddenly, and the handle of the wheelchair made a soft sound when he grasped it. The mother covered her mouth, and tears fell on the spot. "Doctor," he continued, "many of her reactions are related to long-term control and long-term punishment. She relies on self-inflicted wounds to apologize and bleeding to admit her mistakes. She will execute orders immediately without even daring to stop. You think she is making trouble, acting, and scaring herself, but she only has one thought in her mind. Doctor, he turned to look at me. I know what that thought is. Stay alive. Just do it, and you'll survive. The conference room was so quiet that even the sound of breathing was heavy. Chung Jingyan suddenly spoke, his voice cracking with dryness. She was in the water and never came out. Is it because of what I said? Doctor, he nodded. To her, that was the order that had to be fulfilled. If you say don't come out if you can't catch it, she will keep looking for it at the bottom of the pool. She will find it, or she will faint. This sentence fell like a dull knife, slowly piercing everyone's heart. Mother cried out. My father sat on the chair, bent over, holding his head in his hands, and did not raise it for a long time. Chung Jingyan stood motionless, with red circles under his eyes, as if someone had pushed his whole body into the ice water. Doctor, he looked at them and spoke calmly. You'd better cooperate with family therapy. She needs an environment without orders, threats, and coercion. One more time, and the consequences will be severe. After the consultation, my father stopped the contact person from the police. When I came back, I was rescued from an interprovincial anti-gang operation. At that time, the police only discovered that the Golden Bird acrobatic troupe had long-term employment of minors, illegal detention, and abuse. As for how I got in, the information has never been complete. Because when I was first rescued, I hardly spoke. The police asked for my name, and I gave my number. When asked where I was staying, I said the iron bed in the third row behind the scenes. When I asked my family, I said I didn't know. All I remember from that time was the whistle and the lights. Everything else is blurry. Now Dr. He's words seemed to tear open a crack in that layer of cover. My father asked on the spot to reopen my disappearance case. Soon, the old case files were pulled out. Monitoring, driving records, training class routes, nanny information, and a list of all the servants in the family that year. A name was quickly revealed. Wu Guifan. She was the longest-serving nanny in our family when I was 12 years old. She was the one who sent me to dance class the day I disappeared. 7. The results of the investigation came quickly. Fast as retribution. When I was 12 years old, Wu Guifan's son owed gambling debts, and debt collectors blocked the door of the house she rented. She couldn't come up with the money, so she decided on me. That afternoon, she didn't send me to dance class. She drove to the outskirts of the city and coaxed me into a van. She gave me a toffee and said she would take me to see my mother. I still believed her at that time and sat in the back seat with my school bag in my arms. I didn't even notice when the car door was locked. The truck drove all night. When I woke up again, I was already in the backyard of the Golden Finch acrobatic troupe. There was no dance studio there, just iron cages, wooden boxes, hanging ropes, and a group of children about my age. The class leader looked at me and said something. He has a good face. If you train him, he can sell you tickets. From that day on, I was nameless. They call me number 13. Number 13 has to learn to bend down, learn to stand on his head, learn to somersault, and learn to laugh on a 3-meter high pole. If you can't learn, you'll be beaten. Hit the palms of your hands, hit the soles of your feet, hit your back. If you don't practice well in the winter, your clothes will be taken off, and you'll have to pour buckets of cold water on them. Xia Tian made a mistake and had to be locked up in a tin car for half a day. When I was very hungry, I had to pick up the crumbs of steamed buns on the ground and eat them. I learned quickly, because slow people are likely to die. There was a girl named Xiao Meng who fell while walking on the tightrope and broke her leg. She cried all afternoon and was taken away in the evening. I never saw her again. There was also a boy who kept struggling while practicing escaping from the water tank. The class teacher thought he was disobedient and held him in the water to teach him. Later he was dragged up. His face was blue. From then on, my throat would tighten whenever I heard the word, go into the water. All these things are written in the testimonies and inspection reports brought out by the police from the Golden Bird Regiment. After my father read it, his hands kept shaking. My mother couldn't stand it until she was halfway through it. She ran to the bathroom and vomited to the point where she couldn't stand up straight. Chung Jingyan flipped through the report from beginning to end and finally stared at one page. On that page was written the source of my old wounds. Old shoulder dislocation and injury twice. The wrist rope was strangled in many places. Old whip marks on the back. Electric shock burns on the outside of the calf. He looked at it for a long time, then grabbed the car keys and went out. No one can stop it. Later, the driver said that he went to the former site of the Golden Bird Regiment. The place has been sealed. There's a seal on the iron gate, and the yard smells of rust. Broken lanterns and rotten boards were scattered on the ground. The mirror backstage was broken into many pieces, and there was still unwashed oil paint on the dressing table. Chung Jingyan stood there and trembled when he saw the hanging rope in the corner of the training ground. He remembered the injury on my back. I remembered what I said to him after I rolled down the stairs. Brother, I'm out. I also remembered that on the day of the dinner, when he pulled me out of the pool, I was holding the stone tightly in my hand. The driver said he had been inside for 2 hours. When he came out, the back of his hand was covered in blood. I don't know if it was hit by hitting the wall or scratched by picking something up. On the other hand, the police also discovered an even more ugly truth. Before Wu Guifan disappeared, she had entrusted her granddaughter to the Chung family. That child is Chung Yutong. She was only 11 years old when she first came to the Chung family. She was thin and small, holding an old school bag, and stood at the door without daring to speak. Seeing that she was pitiful, her mother thought that Wu Guifan had been with the family for many years, so she left her behind. Later, Wu Guifan died of illness, and Cheng Yutong became the adopted daughter of the Cheng family. Her mother hired the best teacher for her father wrote her in the family tree, and Cheng Jingyan protected her as a sister for many years. She occupied my room, wore my old dresses, and grew up holding my childhood bunny stuffed animal. And she knew something. Not all. But it was enough for her to understand that she would lose a lot when I came back. The police found an iron box in a secret compartment at the bottom of the dressing table in her room. In the box were an old bell, an opened anonymous letter, and a yellowed playbill. The bell was the peace bell I wore on my ankle when I was a child. The anonymous letter was sent by a makeup artist from the Golden Bird group, who later escaped. She said that she saw a girl who looked like Miss Chung in a small provincial town. She was performing on the acrobatic ring and had a crescent-shaped birthmark on her back. When the letter was sent to the Chung family, I had not yet been retrieved. It was not delivered to the parents. It went into Cheng Yutong's drawer. 8. When his father smashed the iron box on the coffee table in the living room, the color on Cheng Yutong's face disappeared instantly. My mother was sitting on the sofa. Her eyes were frighteningly red. Cheng Jingyan stood at the top of the stairs without saying a word, but his eyes were as cold as ice. I was sitting on the single sofa, holding warm water in my hand, and there were light pink marks on my palms left by the stitches that had just been removed. No one urged me upstairs. No one forced me to speak. They learned one thing this time. Speak softly. Stay away from me. I would like to ask in advance if this is okay. But Cheng Yutong obviously hasn't learned it yet. She denied it at first. I don't know what that is. I'm just afraid that you'll be sad. I opened the letter because the sender didn't sign it, so I thought it was a scam. She spoke quickly and shed tears quickly. In the past, my mother must have softened her heart. But this time, no one moved. Her father stared at her, his voice coming out from between his teeth. What else do you know? Cheng Yutong's lips trembled. She probably knew she couldn't hide it anymore, so she just knelt down in tears. My grandma said it twice before she died. She said she was sorry for the Chung family. She said she wouldn't have sent Sister Z away if it weren't for me. Mother stood up suddenly and dropped the cup in her hand to the ground. You already knew? Cheng Yutong cried until he couldn't breathe. I didn't understand it when I was a kid. I only figured it out when I grew up. But I don't dare to say it. Mom, I really don't dare to say it. She climbed a step towards her mother and grabbed the hem of her skirt. I'm afraid that you won't want me. I'm afraid that after she comes back, you will kick me out. I have nothing. I only have this home. Mother suddenly pulled back the hem of her skirt as if she had been burned. That was the first time I saw her hit someone. After a slap, Cheng Yutong's face turned to one side. You have a family. Mother was trembling all over. You also have the knowledge. But she was ruined by you for 6 years. Cheng Yutong cried harder and turned to look for Cheng Jingyan. Brother, please help me. Speak for me. I really didn't want to kill my sister. I just wanted her to be unable to stay by herself. I didn't quite hear what she said next. The 4 words can't stay any longer are enough. She wanted to force me away. When she saw how obedient I was, she tried this thing again and again. Test whether I can really drink hot soup. Try to see if I can really go to the cold storage and kneel down. Try to see if I can really do what she said, commit suicide, admit my mistake, apologize, and make a fool of myself. Every time she tried, I became more of a monster. Every time she cries, others feel more sorry for her. I looked at her and felt empty. There is no hatred and no happiness. It's like looking at someone who has nothing to do with me. The father asked the housekeeper to call the police. Whether to file a case and how to deal with it are none of my business later. All I know is that when Cheng Yutong was taken away, he threw himself at my feet and begged me. Sister, please help me. Just say, forgive me. I looked down at her. After a long time, I spoke. I won't. These 3 words were spoken very slowly. But it was the first time since I came back that I clearly rejected someone. The living room was quiet for 2 seconds. Doctor, he said, refuse to practice. Start with the shortest sentence first. No. Don't want. I don't want to. I practiced for many days and finally said these 3 words very stably. After Cheng Yutong was pulled away, my mother squatted in front of me, tears falling one by one. She wanted to touch me, but she didn't dare. In the end, she only asked cautiously, Z, can Mom give you a hug? I looked at her and nodded slowly. She burst into tears and her whole body was shaking when she hugged me. I don't freeze like before. I gently put my hand on her back. Very light. It's like trying something very strange. That night, Dr. He came to the house for the first family therapy session. She brought several cards with the words yes, no, and wait a minute written on them. She put the card into my hand and said, Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. I lowered my head and touched the 3 cards. The paper is very hard and the corners are neat. I suddenly remembered that when the group received the program list, it was also the same paper. But this time, what is written above is my own opinion. A few days later, my mother prepared a skirt for me. He said he wanted to make up for my birthday. The skirt is very beautiful, red, and the skirt is decorated with broken sequins. My fingers curled up as soon as I saw it. The costumes of the Golden Bird Troupe also look like this. It's so red and bright that it's dazzling. When the lamp shines on him, it looks like countless broken blades clinging to his body. When my mother saw me staring at the skirt, she thought I liked it, so her voice became lighter. You loved red the most when you were a kid. Give it a try, okay? My throat tightened, and I clutched the card in my palm. After a long time, I looked up at her. No sequins. Mother was stunned. I said it again. I don't want this. Her eye circles turned red, and she nodded repeatedly. Okay, let's change. It's all up to you. I listen to you. I have heard these 4 words before, but no one has ever really put the choice in my hands. 9.